Hello, everybody. Hope everyone is having a fantastic White Pill Wednesday. Welcome back to the stream. A lot has happened since the last political stream. I guess the Liberals won, so now we got Carney in office, which I'm not going to get into reactions or anything like that. It's it's pointless. Whatever happens, happens. I hope the guy does well, because that means then the country does well. From what he's written in his own book, it doesn't look like we are going down that road, but that's okay. We'll persevere and push on. That's all I'm going to say on that. But for today's stream, I wanted to try something else. This is something that I've discussed before with, on this show. I think more so in the written articles themselves. But in any case, there was this piece that I wrote a while back. Let me see if I can find it. Bear with me for one moment. I read about this event that happened in, wasn't Taiwan? Yeah, it was Taiwan. It was a student revolution where effectively, student-led revolution, where effectively the students themselves, well, let me just pull up this piece, I'll show you. Because I'm genuinely surprised that I never heard of anything like this before. Give me 1 second. Yeah, this is in one of my earlier pieces. I was writing about the Taiwan Sunflower Revolution. So, if my timeline is correct, oh, this video is unavailable. Fantastic. Okay, so there was a trade agreement that China was trying to push on the Taiwanese that a lot of people didn't like, because essentially it would link the business of China and Taiwan ever so closer, well, ever so closely, or closer than it has been in a while. And for those who don't know, that's China, right? And that's Taiwan. They're literally right here. And this country, Taiwan is responsible for like 80% of all global microchip manufacturing, I'm pretty sure. Here, let me find out. What percentage of global microchip supply comes from Taiwan? Once again, shout out to Perplexity, perplexity.ai for all your search engine needs. Fuck Google. Perplexity is the GOAT. It's free to use, so you don't even need an account or to pay for anything. It's fucking fantastic. Highly recommend it. And I'm gonna keep saying that until they fucking sponsor me. So, God willing, Allah willing, let's go. So Taiwan produces over 60% of the world's semiconductors. Sorry, microchips is not the right word. Semiconductors, and of the most advanced chips, they produce more than 90%, which is fucking crazy. Okay, everything from your fucking microwave to your alarm clock needs this, right? Like, this is a vital resource that the entire planet depends upon. And so there's one country on the coast of China that is so precariously close to fucking disaster. Like, look at, are you serious? Look at this. Look at all these cities. Look at all the infrastructure they have and the standing armies and the army parades. Look, I'm not trying to fearmonger here. I'm just saying, like, that is an absolutely insane position to be in as a country. Not only as a country, but as a country that is hyper capable of producing the most, like, advanced technology, right? Which is insane just on the face of it. But in any case, let me see here. What was the law that was disputed by the Taiwanese government, which led to the Sunflower revolution. Because from my understanding, China was pushing for this bill, and they were sponsoring, or at least in some ways trying to lure Taiwanese politicians to vote on behalf of this bill, which would benefit China. It was called the Cross-Strait Service Trade Agreement, and this agreement was negotiated between Taiwan and China and aimed to liberalize the trade in service industries between the two sides, including sectors such as banking, healthcare, tourism, telecommunications, and publishing. Telecommunications being my primary concern, as China's already been found out to be putting spyware in their phones. Not only that, I mean, fucking TikTok is a spyware app, for those who don't know. It's purely made by the government to collect information. And that's not even a conspiracy theory. If you just look at the terms of service of TikTok, you can read it for yourself. Everybody that downloads the app has a chance to read it. And in it, with the kind of data that it would collect your, not only your location, your keystrokes, not only in the app, but also outside the app, and hardware data on your phone and what other devices you interact with. And then it would also be able to monitor certain aspects of the activity of people that are on your Wi-Fi network. So it doesn't have to be that you have TikTok and that you're connected to it. If you're using a router, or you're connected to a router or a Wi-Fi signal of like where a user of TikTok has an app, then you are by default also having your phone data scraped. Which is crazy, right? Like, look, say what you want about their popularity or how it supports small businesses and all those worries during, like, before the ban, but that is a crazy amount of surveillance to have in a single app. If you don't believe me, I will look it up right here and source it. What do the terms of service, service conditions of TikTok say regarding the collection of user data? TikTok's terms of service and privacy policy outline broad conditions for the collection, use, and sharing of user data. When users set up an account, the TikTok collects age, email, phone number, and may request bank details and access to social media and phone contacts. The app also automatically gathers device information such as IP address, phone model, carrier settings, time zone, battery state, audio settings, and connected audio devices. It monitors engagement on the app, including what content is viewed and for how long, as well as keystroke patterns or rhythms. It can analyze objects and scenery and videos, detect face and body features, and transcribe spoken words in content. This app can collect approximate and, in some cases, precise GPS locations data depending on user permissions. TikTok assigns device and user IDs, allowing it to track user activity across multiple devices and associated data from devices not directly used for TikTok. Okay, this goes deep, and you guys are more than welcome to read it, but this is not the focus of tonight. So moving forward with this bill, right, this is what they were trying to pass. And the controversy erupted because the then ruling Kuomintang attempted to pass the CCTA, so the trade bill, through the legislation without a detailed clause-by-clause review, leading to accusations of an opaque and undemocratic process. Opponents of the agreement argued that it would disproportionately benefit large corporations, threaten small and medium-sized Taiwanese businesses, and pose risks to Taiwan's national security and democracy by increasing economic dependence on China. Right, so TLDR, long story short, China was in favor of a bill that would allow its foreign investment to leach into Taiwan to the point where they could replace the businesses that are Taiwanese based to Chinese businesses. The most important of which, in my opinion, among the most important of which, is telecommunications. Because as I said in the previous example, China has made apps and services and devices before that have been found to have spyware. That's a pretty big fucking problem. Healthcare is too, and so is banking. I understand that. But ultimately, that's just data mining. Being able to tap into a nation's network, right? And that data will inform their decisions moving forward. But anyways. So they try to pass this bill. The Taiwanese people were like, fuck no. And the students, as a result, protested this bill. They were protesting it, and they shut down... Let me see if I can get a timeline here. They shut down a university let me see if I can find a link. Actually, before I get into that, let me actually read my piece because I realize there's actually quite a bit of good info here. In September of that year, students from several universities gathered to form the Black Island Nation Youth Front in opposition to the trade deal. Fast forward to March 17th, 2024, wishing to move past the legislative gridlock, KMT, the Chinese Nationalist Party that received 30% of the popular vote, 30+% of the popular vote in 2024. The legislator Chang Ching-chung announced, that is an unfortunate name. I'm not even going to go there, but that is an unfortunate name. Announced that the agreement was passed and that it would be submitted for a final vote come March 21st, only 4 days later, which was done without the knowledge of Congress. Oh, I wrote 2024 and that's supposed to be 2014. I am el stupido. My mistake. Yeah, I was like, what? What do you mean 2024? That's fucking crazy. So it's been 10 years since then. So after the students gathered outside the legislature to stage a protest, 400 students illegally entered the building and occupied it for 23 consecutive days while the police tried to forcefully remove them. And they demanded the following: that the president issue an apology for the black box operation, so where they were discussing the law and working on passing it without actually giving notice to the public or having the chance for them to weigh in on it. Their other demand was to convene a citizens' constitutional conference for all parties. I'm guessing that's where the parties would meet and actually discuss how to deal with this crisis moving forward as a unified government. And then the third demand was the executive branch must send the CCTA back, so repeal the bill, not repeal it, but deny the passing of this bill, and that the last demand of theirs was to pass a bill to monitor cross-strait agreements, which must pass within the current legislative session. Okay, so it was to keep a track on all future bills. So naturally, the police tried to stop them, and as the crowds began to amass outside the legislature where the students were in support of them, students set up barricades on every door. They set up supply stations to meet everyone's needs with sleeping bags and food, and even set up air ducts to keep them cool. Some of these photos are downright incredible because, you know, here in North America, we've seen protest movements before, but I would argue we have never seen anything like this on this kind of level. George Floyd was just like rioting nonstop. The Canada missing Indigenous dead children graves story that I explained in the last episode, which ended up, I mean, essentially not a psyop, but it was a targeted social guilt campaign, essentially. Kind of in the same way that Black Lives Matter was. Made people feel guilty for having, like, when they had absolutely nothing to do with it, and it was based on lies. So, like, not entirely on lies. There's a grain of truth in that, yeah, slavery happened, and yes, racism happens, and yes, the indigenous schools happened. Yeah, we have to absolutely realize that for the horrors that they were. Nobody's denying that. But, like, that doesn't give you the right to just go around and fucking riot or burn churches or what have you. Like, that's an insane reaction. And then to bail people out, to have politicians advocate to bail these people out and essentially help protect them and allowing these riots to go on while the white and black neighborhoods burned all the same. The churches were, like, for who? Like, it fucked over the community members that went to church? Like, great. Oh, wow, you really sent the message. Like, what did they accomplish? Black Lives Matter ended up just dismantling itself because the leaders bought mansions. They took the donation money and they bought mansions with them. One of them, which is in Toronto right now, and it used to be the ex-headquarters of the Soviet Communist Party. Like, if that doesn't tell you everything about BLM, about where it started and where it ended, then I don't know what to tell you. And what happened to the reconciliation revolution? Like, what came of that? The Pope came and apologized? Wow, that's great. Do natives in Canada still live with poor quality of food, water, shelter, education, everything? Yeah, absolutely. Like, whose conditions has this actually improved? I fail to see how this has actually helped the people. So these movements have just not only been fruitless, but self-defeating. And then money gets involved, and then the whole thing just turns into a fucking joke. And that's all just to say, like, this is just a contrast. What happened with the sunflower movement, right? Let me see if I can find their original site, because they actually set up a website to track the timeline and to see and record what was going on, rather. No, this isn't it. There was a really good website for this. Bear with me for 1 second, guys. I think this is it. Yeah, I have found it. Yeah, this is wild to see. A nation came together to oppose a law that would directly affect them negatively, and it fucking worked. Like, these people pulled it off, because guess what? So the students start protesting, right? Like, look at the masses of people on the street here. Look at this. This is insane. You could it's like it's a sea of people. It looks like it never ends. This is an incredible show of civil action. Okay, I'm going to explain that silly looking person in a bit. Let me just see if I can find any other photos here. Google Images to save the day. Let's see this. So they barricaded themselves inside the legislature and set up sleeping bags, fans, food, everything. And how long did it take? What was the timeline? Let me see here. Oh, that's right. It was 100 days. Sorry, not 100 days. Jesus, 80 days. My math is fucked up. I just remembered why it was called the Sunflower Revolution. The reason it was called that is because the time that it takes for a sunflower to grow is the exact time that it took for the revolution to happen. That's interesting. Good symbol. That's a good symbol. Positive use of a symbol. Let me see here. There's got to be some photos here. Bear with me, fellas. Oh, they even have a writer's dictionary. No way. Is this like a source for writers? No. Where is this? Writer's dictionary. Oh, wow. So this is awesome. So they took they took the alphabet and they found exposés or works or graffiti or art from people that was just any initiative taken during the revolution, and they alphabetized it and they put it out. That's oh, Jesus Christ. Is that a panda fucking a horse? Oh my god. Oh, wow. Okay, that is some imagery right there. That horse is just taking it. That is whew. All right. Scrolling past that. Yeah, this is so cool. So they literally they just made a whole dictionary just full of words that are based on things that happened in the movement. A lot of these being art, but hey, that works. Wow. I'm genuinely surprised I never heard of this story growing up. And it happened like as I was in high school or around there, anyways. In any case, the students barricaded themselves, right? And as they were barricading themselves, they realized, hey, we could actually use this as an opportunity to create something. We could actually use this as an opportunity to think about a different political process because this clearly hasn't worked. Like, at no point did they get a vote in the fact that China was about to come in and not destroy their business capacity, but certainly hinder it and also make them reliant on them. And that's a pretty big fucking deal when it comes to dealing with an authoritarian country. So the citizens came together and they're like, well, we need to figure out how to solve this. And so one of the ways that they went about solving this is they created this idea. Maybe this idea isn't created. I don't know. Maybe this isn't anything new. But so they came out with this platform, this online website that people can go to, where it essentially put politics in a more visualized and easy to understand way. And by this, I mean, initially I believe they created a visualization of where their tax dollars were going for some programs. Let me see if I can find it. So that's for AI. Let me see if I can find the exact example. What were the topographical graphs made during the sunflower revolution, which showed tax dollar expenditures? From my memory, they created this platform that showed people exactly where their tax dollars were going to which program and which district was paying how much in taxes, and they essentially broke it down. And the idea behind this was to show people a different way of understanding these figures, because too often times we hear about these numbers of like billions being spent here, millions being spent here, and there's no way to actually visualize that. I don't even think I've ever seen $1 million in one place in my life, but maybe like 10 grand or something, and actual like physical money, right? But I don't know how to visualize that, and I don't know what that means in terms of how much was collected from each person. It's difficult to assume that. And then where does this money even end up going? Like, most people miss this, but during the election there was about, I think, 145 million that was just passed as a spending bill by the government without any vote whatsoever. Let me see if I can find it. And so where does that money go? Like, who actually gets it and for what programs? And why is this happening now? While we're basically in the middle of an election. It's very strange. Let me see if I can find it. Because that's crazy. That's actually crazy. Nobody voted for it. Parliament's out. And we're just left footing the bill. And like I said in the last podcast, the problem with this money expenditure is not because it's not just because it is not untrackable, but there's no way for us to fight it or disagree with it where our money goes. We just hope that these people have our intentions in mind and understand that we are not going to that we're not going to react too negatively to it, or that they'll lose in the polls or have to call an election or what have you, right? But in the end, like at the end of the day, these people are not accountable. We can just hope. We can hope they're held accountable, but realistically, most of them aren't. They can get into office doing one thing and saying another. So, with that being said, and the Taiwanese Revolution and what they did, the Sunflower Revolution rather, it really made me think twice about how we conduct politics here in Canada and how we just conduct politics globally. Before I do that deep dive, I can't seem to find. What was the? Hold on. Let me find this. Hold on. Canada government spending emergency. Yep, the Governor General approved 143 billion in spending while the government shut down. Let's see if I can find this article, because I knew it was real. I knew I didn't just gaslight myself. Yep, there it is. No, that's not the link. Orders in Council. Here it is. Whereas the president of the Treasury Board reports that there is no appropriation for the payment of the sums mentioned in the schedule, amounting in the aggregate to 40 billion, and the appropriate ministers have reported that the payment of these sums is urgently required for the public good. So they just took $40 billion of tax dollar money, right? And just threw it in the middle of a fucking election onto all of these different agencies. And guess what? Canada Post, zero. Isn't that weird? Everyone else gets hundreds of millions. Via Rail, 166 million. Public Health Agency of Canada, 361 million. Northern Pipeline Agency, 25,000. Oh, that's so telling. Anyways, you can go look for this at yourself. Just look up Orders in Council, April 1st, 2025, and you will find it. In any case, yeah, they just did that, and there's no accountability. So I was thinking, if there's no way for people to realistically engage with the political process, if the only way that we actually can is once every 6 years or however many, right? Because realistically, it's like, okay, so we vote. Great. Like, and what? Like, unless you, like, actually canvass and you go try to convince people with arguments, like, realistically, it's not... Everyone kind of knows that they're doing the vote. You can be influenced one way or another, sure. I'm not saying that there's no way for individuals to do that. But unless you have, like, a platform where you get millions of viewers or even thousands, and even then, like, realistically, chances are, like, those people already had those opinions before they started watching your content. I'm not convinced on the fact that an individual can, unless they are put in a position of, like, immense influence and power, have either hundreds of millions of dollars at their disposal or a huge social media following. The average person that is just working their 9 to 5 can't really engage in any meaningful way. You just go to the ballot box and that's it. You go to the ballot box every once in a while. Maybe you go to a school board meeting. At the end of the day, there's not really any real engagement. And so as a result, people become disenfranchised by it because they're like, well, why the fuck would I vote? There's millions of people rooting for X guy, and my vote is just going against, like, a sea of that, especially if you live in a district that is historically not congruent with your political philosophy. If you're a liberal living in a conservative riding or what have you. Right, so what I'm trying to say is, it's not that this kind of change is impossible, it's just that it doesn't happen at the ballot box. It really doesn't. The engagement with the political process cannot just be left to voting once every 4 or however many years, especially in 2025. Like I think that is an outdated mode of thinking. That simply voting is enough, because it isn't. And so what I'm advocating for is trying to think of a new way to go about envisioning the engagement that people can have with the political process. And I don't mean that like on a federal level, because ultimately the direction where this is going is I want to create a platform where people are able to be empowered and empower themselves to actually affect change in their local surroundings. And empower sounds like a gay word. I get it. You know, kind of a sales pitch right there. But God, it's just because fucking social justice warriors have co-opted that shit to the point where it's just corny as fuck. But empower is the right word, nonetheless. Because at the end of the day, like I said, unless you have hundreds of millions of dollars or a big following, or you're just some great orator and are able to speak, most people are too busy with their lives to actually give a shit, or to give a shit enough to do anything beyond just going to the ballot box. There's plenty of political excitement, but there has to be a new way. And the way that I want to go about it is by reminding people that your community is really where it starts, your immediate surroundings. It doesn't matter how much you can scream about the national debt clock or fiscal policy in a recession, or even like culture war issues like trans kids, or racially motivated hiring practices, or cancel culture. Like any of these things, they are a sap of our time, of the few years that we have on this planet in the grand scheme of things. And doing away with the focus on those issues should be the first step. Because realistically, me personally, I'm more worried if my neighborhood starts, seeing more junkies, or people overdosing, or fights, or break-ins, or anything that really disturbs the peace of where I live. Right? Garbage on the streets, people playing loud music constantly, partying, like whatever the fuck, like anything that disturbs the peace, like that concerns me immediately more than anything else. That our garbage is getting picked up, that our streets are well made and well maintained, that the police have a respectable response time to any emergencies, right? Like that's, I think, not only what I care about, but what people like really deeply care about, even though they may not think about it. Because that's first and foremost. Like the moment that your water goes out unexpectedly in your house, bro, what the fuck? At that point, you're like, Jesus fucking Christ, why can't this shit fucking work? I pay my time, blah, 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 blah. Like, that's the first reaction that we have, because that affects us directly. We just don't think about it. We got used to it. Water's all the time. We don't really have shortages unless you live in a shit building, right? But that, like, stuff like that actually matters. The infrastructure around you, the social cohesion of the people that live there, your ability to rely on one another during a crisis, that needs to be highlighted more. Because ultimately, I feel like with most things in life, it's not always top down that you can affect change, or that you can make an impression not only on yourself but on the world. I think a lot of this stuff starts from the bottom up, of building the fundamentals. And I'm not, what I'm advocating for might sound kumbaya and everybody hold hands in a drum circle. I'm not asking you to fucking go over and kiss your neighbor and tell them you'll bake them brownies if they ever need to. But bringing back the focus to local issues that actually matter, like school board elections, right? Because ultimately the next gen, like if we're all in agreement that we want our society to evolve and do better, and we want to succeed, then that kind of starts with our children. And we need to make sure that there is not as little obstacles as possible, but as little obstacles that are catastrophic as possible, because we still want them to have obstacles to overcome, but it can't be to the point where your school doesn't have fucking air conditioning. Okay, I'm pretty sure there's got to be some schools still left in my city that don't have adequate air conditioning or anything like that, or just shitty infrastructure or lack of access to programs. Like just today, right? The Toronto District School Board announced $58 million in cuts to close swimming pools and some music instructors to offset the deficit. You want to take music and swimming pools away from kids? What kind of a fucking headline is that? That's nuts. In the largest school district in the country. In the fucking country, I'm pretty sure. Is it? Let me make sure I'm not just talking out of my ass here. Hold on. God damn it. Is the TDSB the largest school district in Canada? I'm pretty sure it is. I don't want to toot my own horn here. I'm pretty sure it is. Yeah, it's the largest school district in fucking Canada, serving 239,000 students in nearly 600 schools throughout Toronto. It's not only the largest in the country, but one of the largest in North America. Ranks 4th largest. And so in this district where we're servicing this many kids, we want to cut 58 million, right? Was it 58 million? 58 million. You want to take swimming pools and music from kids. Are you bro, that is indefensible. Find a way. Find a way to fix this. How the fuck do you run that big of a deficit? And why is it only now we're hearing this? This is actually nuts. Right? So what's going to happen? The kids are going to suffer for this. Okay, I don't mean, like, nobody's going to fucking shank them. I'm just saying, like, that's a pretty cruel thing to do. Imagine, like, you're going through school, you're in, like, grade 6, you just started, and you get a pool, but you guys don't get to go in it because swim class is until grade 7. Or whatever the fuck. And then you go to the next year, it's like, oh, sorry, I had to get rid of it. Don't have an instructor. Oh, sorry, that music program you wanted to be a part of because you really like playing music? Nope, that's gone. Couldn't afford the instruments. Like, of all the people that should be getting these services, you should be thinking of the fucking kids. I don't understand how this even happens, right? So, anyways, I'm ranting at this point. This is the kind of shit that needs to be paid attention to over literally anything else. Like, I understand we just had an election. I get it. There's a lot of cultural issues. I understand how the press and the media operate. I'm not ignorant to that. I get it. They're trying to play a numbers game. They want to get the most clicks, so they focus on the issues that matter, or not the ones that matter, rather, but the ones that will get the most eyes, and that incentivizes for sensationalism and for political stuff, because politics is toxic these days and so reactionary that they will cover that over literally anything else because they need to survive and subsist on this. Okay. But let's forget that. Right? That's the news. Let's set that aside. I want to build a platform that informs people and helps them understand that it's not only stuff like this that matters, but that they have the opportunity to have a direct impact to stop these things from happening. Right? And there has to be something. There has to be some kind of a system that can exist to not only remind people to help when these crises arise or to get involved in these problems, but it has to be eventually universal to the point where it can adapt to any kind of political system in any country. In the simplest version of this, I'm basically like imagining, just if I'm spitballing here, it would essentially be an app where you sign in, the info stays locally on your phone, and it's not anywhere like connected on a server or getting tracked. It's completely anonymous. Everything is encrypted, and you don't even have to give the honest, like, you don't have to give an honest telling of who you are, right? If you'd rather not. If you just want to say that you live in this region and you care about these topics, fine. So after that little screen, that intro screen that gives you that little questionnaire, it would then have essentially like a UI, a user interface, where you can pick the kind of issues that you care about, and it would tell you what are some of the ways based on your locality that would affect this. So, for example, if you're against housing, like certain housing policies regarding like building condos and the gentrification of neighborhoods, it could give you links to various hearings that are happening in your district. Because I don't know about you guys, but here in Toronto, there's a process where when new buildings are built, there's oftentimes a public consultation that happens. I don't think that's with every building. All right, you know what? Let me actually look this up. So, what are the necessary conditions prior to a hearing of a new building being built in Toronto? To a public hearing. Because I actually want to better understand if it's just like condos or what, but let's see. Okay, so they got to submit a formal application for rezoning, minor variance, or other planning permissions if the proposed building does not fully comply with existing zoning bylaws or the official plan. City staff review the application for completeness and compliance with relevant policies and speculations. The city is required to provide public notice of the hearing. The notice must include details such as the date, time, location, and a description of the proposal. Let's see. The hearing is typically conducted by the Committee of Adjustment or City Council, depending on the nature of this application. Council members are expected to approach the hearing with an open mind and must avoid conflict of interest. The proposal must be evaluated against criteria such as alignment with the city's official plan, the intent of the zoning bylaw, public interest, and the suitability of the proposed development. Okay, so essentially it's a public hearing where city councilors are sitting there and analyzing the plans that are being built, the zoning laws and all that good stuff for a building. Right, so in the area where I used to live, there was a lot of these redevelopments that were happening. And while some of them have been positive, I would have at least liked to go to some of these meetings because I regret not having gotten involved before. The place where I used to live now just feels kind of soulless. There were all these small business shops and just hub spots of people gathering after school, between classes, on weekends, and it felt like the area had a life to it. And now when I go back, it's like you're no longer walking through the area, you're blasting through it just because you're trying to get through the foot traffic of the amount of people that live there. And everyone's just out and about trying to get some shit done. There's just much more people. There's more garbage on the street that's not... It doesn't feel as homely anymore. Like there were local people that had built their businesses for decades that you saw all the time. And now they're just gone. And in the place of that is like a condo or some boutique shop. Which I understand. There's only so much we can do to kind of slow the tide on that. But I feel like the public having an opportunity to have input on the, the building of these developments and how they quite literally change their immediate surroundings, that's important. Like that's not only important, that's critical. Because if you don't get involved in that, the councillors are just going to go forward with whatever it is the hell they think, and we hope that these people have our best interests in mind. We're asleep at the wheel, effectively. When in reality, like they videotape these things, and people can bring their phones in and videotape them and get a clip and go viral. It happens all the time. During COVID, there was a ton of them that happened. That certainly made waves and affected public opinion on certain things. Right? Like it's stuff like that that can kind of push the needle. And I'm not even talking about like clipping a viral moment. I'm just saying at least getting involved in the process, letting these people hear what you think. Because if they hear enough of the same message, I don't think that does nothing to people. And it certainly beats just fucking talking about it all day on the internet. I mean, at the end of the day, like, there's so many of these commentators that are just selling their takes all the time. My take on this, his take on that, like all this fucking clipping that happens. of these podcasts and everything. And if that's the extent of your political engagement, I don't see this going anywhere, because it feels like, at least to me, I don't know about you guys, but it feels like we just kind of hoped that these people would have our best interests in mind, and now that that has been proven wrong time and time again, and we keep getting burned, but nothing actually keeps happening. Like, maybe it's time to think of something new. Maybe it's time to build something different, or reimagine civic engagement. You know, in civics, what we learned in that class was basically how the federal government works. Now that I think about it, we had this class in, like, I want to say it was like grade 10 or 11. This class where it essentially taught you the various levels of government, who the prime minister is, who the people in his cabinet are, what their roles are, how a bill gets passed, and all these things on the federal level, and somewhat on the municipal level and the provincial level too. And none of it even stuck with me. And I'm not saying that that's indicative of the value of that education, because I'm sure there's plenty of people that, you know, may have learned something from that. But civic engagement doesn't just happen once through a class that you take in high school or the times that you take a ballot box. It's with everything. If you don't keep your block clean, it's gonna get dirty. If nobody picks up the trash, like, it's gonna start looking filthy if we don't maintain it. And I apologize if I'm talking in circles here, but what I'm getting at, I want to be able to find a way to maximize for political engagement that doesn't involve people going into a tizzy or a rage about bullshit culture war issues, but instead rather has them focus on their immediate surroundings. Because when you start affecting your immediate surroundings, that's when you actually notice that you have agency in life, and you can, in fact, change your environment, even in small, seemingly insignificant ways. I mean, look, if you don't believe me, by all means, spend 15 minutes picking up garbage in your neighborhood and see how you feel at the end of that. Like, yeah, you're going to look silly, because it's like, who the fuck is this person just going around picking up garbage? But it works. It just puts it into a better perspective, because then you look around on your way back from your walk and you realize, oh shit, like, I did that. Like, you can actually affect your environment. Maybe not in the fullest ways that we want to, right? But no amount of wish making is going to actually change the public opinion of hundreds of millions, if not billions of people. You have to actually do something at the end of the day. It's not enough to just post a black square on Black Lives Matter thinking, yeah, no, that's my political engagement. Which is exactly what people did, and is just beyond retarded. But even avoiding that, that's what I essentially want to do. I want to create a platform that reimagines politics. And I've thought about this not as long as I should be, because this really should be like a what can I call it? An immediate goal. Because the benefits of something like this are limitless. Being able to foster that kind of engagement from everyone, not from everyone, but from a sizable chunk of the people around them, is crucial. Because at the end of the day, like, if your power goes out, you're reliant on your neighbors. And if you don't know who they are, or you see like a political sign in their front lawn and you simply disagree with their take, like, how likely are you to go over there and trust them if you're so lost in the sauce of political drama that you can't be bothered to just be a decent person, you know? That's like, none of that shit matters. It's like that saying, I think Bill Burr said it, there's no feminists in a house fire. You know, like, your ideals will wither away at the face of a crisis, and you'll just want the problem to be dealt with as soon as possible, which is the right attitude to take. It's just, you know, it shouldn't take a crisis for us to get to that limit. It really shouldn't. This should be something that is practiced every single day. And look, I'm not perfect. I'm 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 not a perfect example of this, but I want to aspire to that somehow. Because frankly, I'm sick and tired of these, uh, of the notion that federal politics should matter this much. Because ideally, I'd like to live in a world where I didn't know who the prime minister was, and it didn't matter, because the country was in good hands, or the president, and that things were going on course. It would be nice to not know a lot of the things that I know about the political process and all the shit that's been happening for decades now. And not necessarily not know, but not have it take up so much space in my brain. And part of that is because I need to shut off, and I need to be more intentional with that. But the other part of it is because it's inescapable and it's literally everywhere on every TV, on every social media platform. It's just it seems like you can't escape it. It's fucking everywhere. It's in your dating life, it's in work, in sports, it's everywhere. This whole political machine, it envelops all our lives, and it doesn't. I don't think it brings joy to a lot of the people that participate in it or in it deep. And this is speaking from experience. And I've seen how it affects people close to me, and I'm not a fan, and I don't think that we should keep going down this route. It's just not. It's self-defeating. I'll leave it at that. About the notion. In any case, what does this platform actually look like? Well, if I was a betting man, I would want to start from a place of what is it in the immediate surroundings of other people that truly matters to them at the end of the day. I would want to start from that. So let's do some brainstorming, because I said we're going to lock in the stream, and we are locking the fuck in. We're an hour in, and we're locking the fuck in. Let's go, baby. Un momento. I am just opening up the good old Notes app. There we go. Because all the best ideas come from the Notes app. You don't need anything else. You don't need any optimization tools. Literally a Notes app. It's literally all you need. All right, un momento. I just don't want to dox myself. All right. So, boom. Notes app. Fucking love Notes apps. Call it a good old brainstorm. God, I remember hearing that word and just thinking of a storm of flying brains, and that was the trippiest shit as a kid. The fuck came up with brainstorm? If the idea of this platform is to maximize or enable individuals to have greater leverage over the immediate surroundings within which they live, then we have to get at the core of what people prioritize in their environment. So let's say here, so proximal environmental concerns. We'll call it that, right? So you're talking about your infrastructure. So that includes roads, telecom, that includes water, hydro, gas, etc. Well, what else? Let me just think of some. Roads, obviously, yes. Highways, yep. Water quality. Water / quality. Hydro, gas. What else? If we got some chatters, please pipe up. because I'm all for getting public input on this one. Let me see here. Well, actually, why don't we ask AI? What are all the various aspects of our immediate proximal, environmental, proximal, that make, no, what are all the various aspects that make up the infrastructure within which we live in urban cities? Or maybe types, not aspects. Actually, no, we got it. Railways, airports, seaports, and intermodal transit hubs, public transportation systems, buses, trams, subway, ferries. Right, public transit. That's infrastructure. Now let's actually break these down here. Oh, beautiful. Bro, we're about to we're about to solve democracy, guys. How do you feel about that? This is going to be legendary. This is going to be the list of all lists. Public transit, bike lanes, hell yeah, because I fucking love biking. And bike lanes should absolutely be a thing in the places where they actually mean something, and removing them, as Doug Ford wants to do, and then also pass a law so that if their family members or friends die because of the removal of these bike lanes, they can't sue the government. That should be an appalling thing that everyone knows. Just fucking crazy. In any case, stormwater drainage and flood control systems. Stormwater drainage, which is huge because in Toronto, we recently had a flooding, which was crazy. Like, there were fish on the DVP. Like, look at this. I'm going to show you guys a picture of this. Oh, where is it? Somebody found a fish. I remember somebody was, like, hunting a fish. Damn, can't find it, but check this shit out. That's fucking crazy, isn't it? Damn. And I realized we had a storm, but god damn, it should, like, that water level is absurdly high. You don't realize this. That is insane. Usually it's drier as a motherfucker. In any case, stormwater, yes. Energy grid. And we'll break these down into further categories. Waste management. Actually, you know what? Here. Just gonna copy and paste this. This is a much better list. Oh, beautiful. Look at that. Transportation. Close that. Close that. Close that. Close that. Oops. Whoops. Water supply systems, reservoirs, treatment plants, distribution networks, wastewater management, sewage networks, treatment plants, stormwater drainage, and flood control systems. See, this is all the boring shit, right? This is clearly not as boring as yelling about child mutilation or abortions or racism or any of the other political causes that people are more than glad to get behind. Shit's boring as fuck, man. I'm fucking falling asleep right as I'm thinking about it. That's quite the challenge, then. How the fuck do you make this sexy? Or appealing enough? That's the other problem. You know, it's one thing to talk about in an ideal world, it would be great if we could focus on these things and divert our tax dollars to going towards them a little bit more effectively. Because at the end of the day, we all use the infrastructure. If there's a pothole in your neighborhood, everyone's paying for that. All their cars are getting fucking fucked up by it. You're all paying in repairs, right? We're all paying somehow for this when it doesn't work, rather. So might as well get involved in how it actually functions. So we have some ideas in terms of the scope of this. So infrastructure is certainly a part of it. Besides infrastructure, though, I don't want to just focus on that. I don't want to make a fucking Bob the Builder app where people can see where the latest construction sites are happening or check out the approval of new ones, though that would be useful, right? Just to know in their proximity. Or whether or not the nearest hydro treatment plant, water treatment plant, has passed its safety tests, right? There's not really a lot of news that come out on that. Not really a lot of information on that. But I bet you, a lot of this information can be found on open source government websites. So this can be scraped. This information can be scraped and put in a sexy enough way for people to care. You know, do I have to like generate fucking road chan and hydro dam chan and all these waifus to get the people involved? Is that what I should do? I feel like that's $1 million idea that I'm sitting on right there. Because sex sells and people love waifus. They fucking go apeshit for them. People love Miku. What if it was Landfill Coon? Okay, well, that's not a good name. Anyways, I don't want to just do infrastructure, though. That's my point. There has to be a portion of this where community building is essential. I'm not saying that as a slogan. I'm saying that I want to make it so that this platform, in whatever form it comes out, is also facilitating the maintenance of the community. So let's say, for example, there are some known public events that are happening in the area, or yeah, events would be one thing, but I don't want to just create an Eventbrite because that already exists and people can go look that up. And I don't want to create a platform where people can go and post events because that has its own problems, and there's plenty of those. I think it would more so look like, based on the interests that you input, what kind of events do you want to see in your neighborhood? And these events would have to be sourced from just about everywhere. From Eventbrite, from Facebook, from... Well, Twitter doesn't have any. I don't think Instagram has that either. So we would have to scrape all of these different event sites where it's not just like concerts and bars and singers and all that. I don't think that would be ideal. But let's say something like a business opening. Right? Like everyone says buy Canadian, but realistically we buy a ton of American shit. But what if there was a way that we could do that, not necessarily just support our businesses, but to take a more aimed approach at supporting the economic health of our neighborhoods? And by that, I mean, yes, like going to the openings of new businesses. What if there was somehow a way to scrape this information, if there is any way to do it, and just see what it's all about? Or maybe this would also have a portion where people could volunteer their time at certain causes, or just have basic information on like, here's where you can volunteer if you'd like to, whether it's a church or a food bank. Because I actually went on, I was trying to find out if I could volunteer at a food bank for Thanksgiving once, And man, the process was fucking stringent. I thought they were hungry for people. Turns out there's like all these background checks and everything you have to do, which I get it. I understand you want to take precautions, but none of the places I called, and I called quite a few in my city, none of them were willing to take in like last second people that were just like, hey, I have a spare day that day. I can bring some like friends and family. Can we do something about it? And nothing. Crickets. I was told I even tried this like a week in advance of the Thanksgiving weekend, and none of them were taking volunteers, which is crazy to me. Like crazy. Like I used to work as a cook. Like I know how to cook. I'm not an idiot. If you just ask me basic stuff, I can tell you about it. I don't know. It was just very strange. I didn't think that they would be that restrictive. So I think it would be good if we had more of an awareness towards that kind of stuff in terms of where we can volunteer our time. And not just volunteer our time, but go and act in the support of local initiatives. Here, let me include another category. Okay, and don't need to bold that. Don't need to bold that. So infrastructure, volunteering. Oh, did I put this as heading? Title. Infrastructure, volunteering. Social events would be good. Social community events. Specifically targeted at the community centers. So like, let me take a look here. What kind of events do they actually have? For example, let me see. Let's see the Franklin Community Center. Is there any other way to volunteer? Fine, let's check it out for Toronto. Oh, sorry, I didn't include this infrastructure. Oh, Jesus Christ, this goes on. All right, let me just copy and paste all of that then too. Telecommunications. Guys, we're gonna solve democracy tonight. We're gonna solve the fucking world. We're gonna solve the fucking planet, whether they like it or not. We're actually making moves. You guys don't even know. We're actually making moves here. This is a co-working stream, bro. Let me actually see this. What are all the ways of volunteering in the city of Toronto? I'm sure it'll give us a good breakdown. And let me actually ask the reasoning model for that. Of course, environmental and green infrastructure. Gotta have green spaces. Yeah, we need more parks, baby. More parks. I love me a good park. Who doesn't love them a good park? You sit down with your friend, maybe a beer, maybe a cigarette, maybe just some music, maybe a nice little picnic basket. Bro, that's the best. That's the spice of life. Imagine how luxurious it is to just be able to fucking sit down in peace in public. How many places on earth you can't just do that? It's awesome, man. That should be cherished. That's a public good. Keep that shit clean. Let's see here. Toronto Humane Society. Yeah, why wouldn't you want to volunteer with cats? Or the youth development? Big brothers, big sisters. These are all great ways to actually make impacts on the community. See, I would have loved to do this for my volunteer hours, because in Canada, you need 40 volunteer hours, at least in Ontario, I believe, to graduate. You need to volunteer somewhere for 40 hours to graduate. It's a prerequisite. If you don't get it done, you don't get to graduate. Simple as. And so a lot of people find interesting ways of volunteering. Myself included, but technically I was doing a public good. I was working for the stage crew in my school, so we helped set up all the plays. Sometimes we actually did them for like the city. They would rent out the space. We would even get paid for it. But yeah, there are a lot of plays that we put on for the school, which is technically the community. And we spent quite a bit of time setting them up after school, and even before school, and even during school, especially if it was big. There were big productions. So yeah, I guess that counts in some way. But in any case, so there's quite a few places. Now, how do I narrow this down to categories? What are all the types of places that accept volunteering in the city of Toronto? Because I want a list that says like churches, youth programs, homeless shelters. There's even a shelter in Toronto that I know of that you can give them baked goods. So if you just bake too much stuff, you can just give them the leftovers, or just decide to bake a whole batch for them. Like, that's pretty fucking cool. What is this? Yeah, food banks. Climate change. What do you mean? Oh wow, look at that. They in 2008 they came together to raise money to build a new school field for the kids. That's awesome. See, more of that. That's great. Oh, that's lovely. And in 2008 they also partnered with the Institute for Canadian Citizenship to deliver the Institute's first citizenship ceremony held at the Wellesley Community Center. That is lovely. That's great. Making more people citizens. Hell yeah. That's awesome. And these nice ladies got together with kids that had developmental issues. Hell yeah. That's great. Help the little tykes out. Excellent. So they've been doing quite a bit. Yeah. So here's what I'm getting at then for volunteering. You got churches. You got schools, which no. Local volunteering organizations, homeless shelters, youth programs, the youth programs, what else? Animal shelters. Let me see where else. Good Shepherd Ministries, homeless shelters, yeah, healthcare organizations. Healthcare organizations. Youth programs, homeless shelters, local volunteering organizations, churches. Okay, if I think of any more, I will include them. So, Before I actually get into that, time to pop a Zin. Call me Bin Zaden. The way I'd be dropping these fucking Zins, bro. That's by far the most douchiest thing I think I've said in my life. I can't wait for AI to take it and synthesize it. All right. Sugar Pillow is popped. Let's fucking get it. So volunteering. We got the infrastructure. Got volunteering. What are some other ways that we can affect our environment directly? Or at least have a way to source this information and have it be scrapable online. You know, it'd be great. Your local representative. Local representatives. And their voting record. This would be great, because this is getting, actually, this is touching more to the point of actually getting involved with politics. But it's doing so in a way that affects your immediate surroundings still, because you're focusing on your municipal and whichever representatives. Right? Because the federal ones, like, the ones at the national level, as much as we want to say that we can influence them one way or another, there's really not a way to do it. It's just not happening. Not unless you're a millionaire or you have some kind of connections with them. It's just not happening, sadly. So if we turn the eye on local representatives, we can actually affect them change, or at least try to. Because at least they're, like, you know where they live, you know where their office is, you know how to contact them. They're here. They're just down the street from you. So this would be perfect. Municipal politicians, provincial/state politicians, school board representatives. You know what? Let me get an AI prompt going here. List all the types of representatives that operate within the political environment in Toronto. So, municipal politicians, watchdogs, provincial/state politicians, school board members. Let's see if it'll give us a whole list, because I'm actually interested in all the different places that you can vote, because it's not just the main elections. There's got to be other ways to do it. So, mayor, city councilor, deputy mayor, community council, provincial representatives, so members of provincial parliament, federal representatives, okay, oversight bodies, integrity commissions. Okay, no, I have to rephrase that. List all the types of representatives that operate within the political environment in Toronto, that the people of the city have can vote for or pressure politically. Because it has to be people that you can vote for, people that not only you have direct access to, but people that you actually have a choice in whether or not they get into their position. Because some of these people are simply appointed by politicians, and some of them are actually voted in. Because here's the thing. When you go on the City of Toronto website, right? City of Toronto Council voting record. If you're trying to find a voting record on amendments and policies, I sat down one evening and tried to actually find what the procedures are. No, let me phrase it a different way. Give me a resource that displays the procedure of voting on policies or amendments to laws in the City of Toronto on their official government website. Let's go back to the previous query in the meantime. So municipal elections, you have the mayor, city councilors, member of provincial parliament, Toronto District School Board trustees. List all, maybe if I add all known. Make sure to consider all levels of all options where citizens have a vote in the appointment of people that oversee the political process of the city. City of Toronto during their council meetings. Let me amend that and see what happens. Okay, so in terms of the people that we vote for, mayor, city councilor, deputy mayor, which is appointed by the mayor from council members, so still technically voted for, and community council members. Okay, members of provincial parliament, school board trustees, and these are appointment oversight roles, so pressure targets, auditor generals, ombudsman, integrity commissioners, so those people need to be scrutinized as well. Specialized committees. Citizens can pressure members of the council committee overseeing key areas. The executive committee, which sets the agenda, the budget committee, which oversees fiscal planning, and the planning and housing committee manages developmental approvals. Voting occurs every 4 years for municipal and provincial elections. While watchdog roles aren't directly elected, their mandates and appointments can be influenced through council engagement. Okay, so these are all the ways. This is a short list of all the people that we actually have a say over, at least in my city. And let's take a look at the voting process. Okay, no, I don't. This explains to me the process. I need to know. Provide me with a resource that shows the results of all the different, the voting results of all the different meetings that the City Council of Toronto runs when bylaws, policies, or amendments are voted on by City Council members. Make sure it is an official website of the City of Toronto. Because I know this website exists. And my point that I'm trying to make here is that I remember the last time that I visited it, it was incredibly difficult to understand what the voting record actually looks like. Oh my fucking god, what is this? What did I just stumble upon? This looks like a dead website. Jesus Christ. What is this? This is so strange. This looks like it hasn't been edited in God knows how long. Okay, and there's a Toronto Open Data project, Open Data Portal. All right, here we go. Data sets, no. Explore the catalog. Toronto Island Ferry ticket counts. Oh, wow, this is a really useful website. Okay. This is really useful. This would actually be a great source of data, which can be synthesized by an LLM to something that's actually useful. So I'm gonna write that down. Where are we at? Here we go. Close that. Close Twitter. We don't need Twitter. We're locking in. We're locking in. Proximal environmental concerns. Resources. OpenToronto.ca. Open source city data. Perfect. And can we hyperlink this? Of course we can't. Oh, yes we can. Hooray! Now let's just copy and paste this. Volunteering, local representatives, politicians. Perfect. So, politicians. This is going great. Boys, and girls, we're gonna change the city. One copy paste at a time. Okay. So we got the politicians as the pain points too. Now, what else did that LLM provide me with? Have your say, make your views known in writing or registered to speak on an item that is being considered by a committee. Let's see what they have here. Right to council or committee, request to speak at a committee meeting, participating in meetings, relevant committee page. So there's all these different committees. Budget committee, executive committee. Oh, Jesus Christ. Okay, so let's go on one of these. Budget committee. The last time they met was in January 24th, it looks like. I'm sorry, wait, what? Hold on. There's got to be a YouTube channel for this, right? Okay, so yeah, okay, so they do have all of these meetings. How far do they date back? Let's find out. Actually, hold on, what am I doing? I can just search oldest to youngest. So 10 years ago. All these remarks. How do we not have better quality cameras in... Oh, 9 years ago? Okay, you know what? Fair. That's fair. Decade ago? I get that. No, that's fair. I would have thought that they would have had them for much longer than just 10 years ago. But all right, let's press forward. So that's about speaking in meetings. Watch Toronto City Council. Where can we watch it? Video indexing. Oh, based on the committee. Okay, so we'll say community council. Let's say Toronto and East York. Naming of an existing public lane west of Huron Street, extending between Sussex Avenue and Glen Morris Street. Mel Watkins Lane. Who's Mel Watkins? He's a political economist from the University of Toronto. Founder of the NDP. That advocated an independent socialist Canada. Oh, Jesus. Oh, Jesus. I'm sure this guy was important as fuck, but that's wild. It's a wild start to your Wikipedia page. Okay, so this is like simple stuff about like road changes and whatnot. Okay, that would actually be useful too. So, let's see here. All the different committees. And what's the schedule? Let me see here. Oh, and they have a schedule. Perfect. You can scrape this too. Okay, that's perfect. Toronto city council meeting schedule. That's actually really useful. Excellent. So we know when they meet. And let's see here. So it's today's the 30th. So what are they meeting about the Board of Health? Oh, oh wait, never mind. April 1st. My mistake. April 30th. Are they meeting right now? Bid award panel. For marine water taxi services for transportation to and from Island Water Treatment Plant for Toronto Water Division for a period from the date awarded of April 30th to 2026 with the option to renew the contract. Okay, so they're talking about various city contracts. Now look, all of this data, look at this shit. Right, they have different options that they're looking at in terms of the deals and the contract. But I haven't heard of this. No news coverage, nothing. Nobody's talking about this. And it's affecting the city one way or another. Right, this is all data right here. And it tells you what who the supplier of the service will be, what their bid is. And the solicitation and this one that was closed. And the explanation for why it's fiscally responsible or otherwise. See, this would be great if we could condense this to a few sentences or make it easy to understand why these things matter. But not I don't know if something like this would even be of like consequence, because I would actually have to look at it further. Right, there has to be a way to filter all of this noise, because like keep in mind, this is just one meeting that they had and they talk about 3 items. Like here's something that was actually on the news. They put up barriers on a section of Union Station on Front Street. Union Station is where we have our big train station where people arrive, and there's a huge hotel there, and people that come in from the airport, there's a direct train that takes you there. Big hub. There's a lot of stuff to do there, a lot of transit, a lot of transport. And so recently, because of the van attacks and shit, they've created these barriers that are these weird, not weird, but these just concrete slabs that are discolored and beige looking with no design on them to try to impede any vans from running people down, because that's like literally the best place to run people down. And it actually is like the best place now that I think about it. I mean, there's so many people coming out of the subway, so many people going into the station, so many people coming out of the station. That is like a main hub of traffic for the city of Toronto. And we've already had a van attack a couple of years ago. So that, I understand the argument behind it, that they would want to have that protection in place. It's just, it's kind of fucked up that this is where it's gotten to the point where we're like almost expecting it. Which is kind of nuts. And it'll be good to see who got the contract and why they got it. And more importantly, if there are any conflicts of interests, if there are any ways to scan the financial disclosures of the people that are sitting on council to know if any of them in any way, shape, or form are related to them. And one way I'm thinking is you could easily actually scan their LinkedIn. I feel like that would be a good place to start. Scan their LinkedIn to find out if they have any ties, or if any of their connections have ties to this, and how close they are to their connection, so that at least it could evaluate whether that person is in any way in not in danger of, but encroaching on a conflict of interest. I feel like you could easily set up a system to at least detect that. And that it would be quite useful, because nothing pisses people off more than finding out that the guy who's trying to look out for your best interest is actually fucking you over by profiting off of it. I mean, that's a political scandal as old as time. If you guys don't mind for a second, I'm going to get more silly juice. Give me a second. All right, now that I've got more silly juice, the real work can begin. Now the real work can begin. So, not only politicians, but conflicts of interest. Which honestly shouldn't be all that difficult because I can just simply ask the LLM about this. What would be the most effective way of determining which of the people in the positions mentioned above are at risk of being in a conflict of interest? How would a citizen go about discovering this information? Or uncovering, rather. Because the thing is, there is actually quite a few investigatory tools that anybody can use. Let me see if I can find it. Bellingcat certainly had one. They have a whole spreadsheet. Let me see if I can find it. There it is. Yep, there's a whole toolkit that is based on investigating. So, oh, they got another toolkit. There we go. Beautiful. Getting map and satellite data, geolocation, image and video, reverse image search, facial recognition, social media, right? There's all these different tools that can be used. Now, companies in finance would certainly be ideal. Like, for example, this is a database that allows users to examine the finances of organizations known as 527s in the United States, which can raise unlimited sums for political purposes. And it's free. A lot of these tools are free. Now, that's just America. There's quite a few that I'm sure I can find on Canada. Now, let's just close up some of these. The video archive would actually certainly be useful. Conflicts of interest. Actually, you know what? Let me put this as a separate category. Data scraping on conflicts of interest. So financial investigation. City council meeting minutes or videos, which would be excellent for getting clips. You can run those through some kind of an LLM, I'm sure. Or at least some basic text analysis to extract certain pieces of information. Now that's just the voting record. Here's the question. What would be the most effective way? So to review financial disclosures and registries, municipal officials, school board trustees, and MPPs must disclose financial interests under the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act. Access public registries of disclosures through City Clerk's Office for municipal conflicts and Integrity Commissioner reports for MPPs and municipal officials. So this is for North Bay. View the Conflict of Interest Registry. There's actually quite a few. Oh my god, what the fuck? Wait, these people are actually declaring it. For example, in this little place called North Bay. Actually, I don't know if it's little. How big is North Bay? Northeastern Ontario. How big are they? How many people do they have? What's their population? 52,000. Wow. Okay. Certainly no Toronto, but interesting. So they actually have these declarations. Let's see another one. I, Jamie Lowry, declare a financial interest in relation to contract security services as my son is contracted by law officer. Huh. Interesting. Okay, so is there something like this for the city of Toronto? Hold on. Ensure to make sure to include resources that are specifically localized to Toronto and the GTA. Because at the end of the day, we got to start local. But this is actually quite useful. Because the other aspect of this kind of platform is that it has to start with a small town or small towns, because those are a lot easier to affect change in than a municipal giant, like one of the economic hubs of the country, like Toronto. This would need to be tested in small environments first as proof of concept, and then it would need to be applied to the big city model. Because as much as I love having all this data to scrape and all these different things, it doesn't hurt to start simple, figure out where it goes right and where it goes wrong, and then move from there. So this actually is a great resource for that. I mean, these people are literally putting out PDFs where they are declaring that they have a conflict of interest. Like, I, Lana Mitchell, declare a conflict of interest in relation to the District of Nipissing Social Services Administration Board 2025 Healthy Communities Fund and HPP funding because my employer receives funding for these programs. She oversees the funding. Sorry, no, she's part of these boards, and her employer receives funding from the programs of the boards. Might be misinterpreting that, but in any case. Oh, look at that. There's a portal for accountability officers. Like the Auditor General. Reports. Like these reports. This is great. Okay, see, like reports like this would be great. Now, what would even be better is if they truly open sourced this and actually included the statistics and the documents of the investigation. And of course, yeah, this is the response based on the report. Oh, and here's the audit. See, I have to go to the 3 steps just to get the audit, and then the summary, recommendations, and such and such. And here's the presentation. See, all of this. Oh, that's cute. They made it like a subway. That's funny. See, all of this is extremely useful data that if we were able to make it look sexy. Wait, I'm sorry, what? Who made this? What kind of a monkey made this fucking PowerPoint? What the fuck? Who do they hire for this? This is so strange. Why would you just, like, what? Put dashes and X's? Okay, that's one way to do it. Interesting. See, my point is this, with all this rambling, is that the only time that we ever hear of issues like this, whether it's our infrastructure or what have you, is when shit is breaking down. When stuff is like working or slowly trotting along and decisions are just being made without the citizen input or awareness, it just goes under the radar. And then when it breaks, that's when we actually care. But it should be a ongoing maintenance. Otherwise, when it goes unchecked and unwatched, then shit just gets out of control because the people that get into power that want to take advantage of that position, that's what they're going to do. Especially if there isn't anyone doing a deep dive on it. When we're too busy with our daily jobs or families or loved ones or what have you. Right? And it's impossible to pay attention to all of that and to do all this work and all this research and better understand why the budget is going here. And we just hope that the representatives have our best interests in mind, but they don't. And I don't think we can expect them to. Like, these people do not deserve the benefit of the doubt. They really don't, because they're just people. They're just people at the end of the day with their own motivations, their own political agenda, their own aspirations, everything. They're just people. They're not perfect. And we can't expect the automatic process to hold them to account because it hasn't been working. It hasn't. I don't exactly meet a lot of people in my day-to-day life that are like, man, my life is so much better than it was 10 years ago. Because we've just abdicated responsibility for the political process. But that's also because of how complicated it's gotten. I mean, throughout this episode today, look at like how deep I have to go just to get like the meeting minutes or an understanding of what this report is and who the Auditor General is. Like, half of the positions that I've seen today, I never even learned about. Like, I never even knew about it. And that's partly, obviously, like, to blame for my own ignorance. I'm not saying that someone should have sat me down and walked me through all this, but the deeper I go through this political infrastructure, the more I see, like, just how convoluted this whole thing is, just how many moving pieces there are. And so if someone is able to capitalize on that misunderstanding and try to create a sense of clarity so that you know exactly which buttons to push, who to call, which emails to send, which rallies to attend, which meetings to go to, and what is actually on the docket, when we have an aware public that is cognizant and is able to take time out of their day to volunteer or to engage themselves with their immediate environment, that's how we move forward. It's not by marching in the street and yelling slogans out or attending political rallies, even though that stuff can potentially have its own merits, sure, but this is actually something that's much more real. Like, I don't care who the prime minister is nearly as much as I care about having a ride on the TTC to my family's place and not having to worry about getting stabbed. I'm not saying that that's a constant worry, but at one point throughout the last year, we had to send in cops into the TTC just because of how wild shit was getting. And we don't exactly have that as a norm here in Canada. We never really have. This is the first time in my life I've ever seen it, where they had to send a blitz of cops into the TTC just because of all these incidents where people were getting stabbed or pushed on the tracks or what have you. There was a girl that was fucking lit on fire by this guy that was deemed insane, and he didn't serve any jail time for it. This happened like 3 years ago, not even. Here, woman set on fire on TTC. It was a famous story. And here's the verdict from the courts. Man who set woman on fire aboard bus found not criminally responsible for her death. Obviously no photos, but... She was a nursing student. Fuck you, paywall, you piece of shit. She suffered burns to approximately 60% of her body, covering her face, neck, legs, and torso. She died in the hospital 18 days later after receiving intensive care. Now look, I'm not saying that finding conflicts of interest in a counselor's profile is going to get us to not have crazy people burn people on the bus, because that's kind of a one-off random event. It wasn't like there was an epidemic of bus burnings. But I don't think that it's far-fetched to say that certain aspects of the social contract within which we live in this city has broken down to the point where we've allowed a lot of negative activity to seep into the lives of everyday people. I mean, just about every time I get on the TTC now, there's always something happening. There's always a delay somewhere along the system because someone is either on the tracks or of a security incident or what have you. Like it literally happens just about every time I get on the TTC. And if it's not affecting my route, then it's affecting somebody else's route elsewhere in the system. And I get it, it's a big city, there's a lot of people to people interactions, but I don't ever recall it being this frequent or this bad. I mean, another way to track it would be there's an account. Actually, another useful way that we can get some statistics, TTC alerts. Service alerts. It would be good to also scrape this data here and ignore the stuff about track work, but more so track security incidents and be able to plot them on the map and where they happen. Or better yet, take something like the Toronto crime map from the Toronto police. They have a lot of statistics, whether it's calls for service, traffic fatalities, neighborhood crime, annual statistics report. This kind of stuff to visualize it and bring it in one platform would be a fucking super tool. Like that would be, and I think has the possibility of being something that's actually really, really useful for civic engagement. Being able to just open an app and figure out, based on the issues that you care about, how you can personally affect them. Whether it's going to a city council meeting, whether it's volunteering, whatever. Like whatever input an individual can give that can have an impact on that system, being able to access the information and instructions on how to do so, I think would be able to allow individuals to have so much more leverage about the environment they live in. And once they see results, that's the other important thing. If you're able to track that somehow, right, that let's say you want to track the vote on a certain policy where, like, for example, recently the city council voted on buying more ferries, Toronto ferries. So our ferries between the island have been here, let me show you guys. For those who don't know, here's Toronto, right? This whole section here, and here's the island. We have an island here where ferries go, and people actually live on the island, even during the winter times. There's like a long ass wait to get into a house there. There's a ton of obstacles you have to get through in order to even be able to be considered for one. But people do live there. It's a major attraction. People go on the beach. There's a whole like park for kids. It's like a major thing. It's, you know, it's a great Toronto thing to just go there and spend a day there on the beach or what have you. Even a nude beach there for all the fucking crazies. Not crazies, but by all means, have your fun. This place is great. It's an awesome place to spend a day out in the sun, biking around or just walking around or go on a school field trip. It's a great place to be in the summer, right? And so they noticed that the ferries were breaking down more often and realized that, hey, we need to replace them. Well, with all this global homo environmentalism bullshit going on, how everyone is focused on carbon and the earth burning down, they thought, hey, wouldn't it be great if Toronto had electric ferries? Which, okay, sure, I'm all for, you know, as long as it comes from, I don't know, some kind of a sustainable way, and these ferries can last and actually do the job and are just as effective, if not more, than the old ones. And if they don't rely on fossil fuels and there's a way to dependently get energy from them and to power them, sure, like what's the difference? If there's no additional cost, that's actually going to fuck people over. Now, there's an argument to be made for conflict minerals and where we mine this lithium and where it comes from. Okay, fair enough, you know, for the batteries and everything. But if it's sourced properly and it's made by a Canadian company, then everybody kind of wins, right? Like, I feel like most people would be on board for that. Well, the problem is, apparently, they didn't consider how to fucking charge the damn things. So let's listen to a quick clip of the Toronto City Council meeting where they discussed this exact thing only a couple of weeks ago.
CEO, different DCMs, different everybody, different mayor, decision to actually purchase that went through council. And was there any provision at that time for inshore infrastructure or any charging facilities?
Madam Speaker, no, not at that time.
Not at that time. So I believe that when we came back to look at the final price tag on the ferries, I think at that point a motion was moved saying, what about the inshore infrastructure, which had been contemplated but never costed, correct?
That's correct.
And at what point did we discover that if we're going to buy electric ferries, they have to be plugged in? At what moment did that light bulb go off?
Madam Speaker, in July 2024, we brought an updated number to Council through the variance report, identifying $42 million for shoreside infrastructure charging that would be required with the 2 electric ferries.
However, the actual charging inshore infrastructure was we have to move the dock wall, we have to make space because they're big ferries. The actual cost to plug them in wasn't contemplated until recently. Am I correct or not?
Madam Speaker, I can answer that that is correct, and in July it was still an estimate at that time for what those costs would be.
I'm not talking about an estimate. I'm talking about if you're going to buy an electric car, would you not think you'd know where you're going to plug that in order to make the purchase, correct?
Correct.
So none of the assumptions about docking, charging, anything related to these ferries were made from the previous administration, the previous mayor, the previous senior staff. It hasn't happened until now. Am I correct?
The capital plan started to identify electric infrastructure that would be required in the 2024 capital budget.
Oh, I'm talking about earlier. I'm talking about when we decided to buy these.
That's the earliest I can trace back to it.
Well, 2019, there was a decision to buy electric ferries, but no decision to have inshore infrastructure that met the size, no decision to to have a charging facility. So that's all new and in front of us today. I think I'm right about that, correct?
That's correct.
Thank you.
Okay, well, look, what more proof do you need? First of all, right, the biggest thing there, not even just what she said, look at how old these people are. These people are well into their 50s and 60s, and they're running shit. If not older, right? They're the ones that are in council. Right, like these people, they're not children. They're not high schoolers. These people are of sound mind and body, or at least I would fucking hope so, right? And they make a decision 6 years ago, effectively, right, to buy ferries and to replace them with new electric ones. Except they didn't consider, or at least propose, the fucking cost of the charging. So the actual cost of the ferries was not released on purpose because they decided not to include how much it would cost to fucking charge the damn things. How irresponsible is that for a piece of infrastructure that sees how many people does the ferry service per year? Let's find this quick fact, okay? How many people does the Toronto ferry service each year? Because I would bet you it's in the millions. Or at least 1 million. Because the people that live on the island use it too. 1.2 million passengers in 1995. In 1995? Hold on. What is the approximate amount of people that the Toronto ferries take between Toronto and the Toronto Island every year? Include people that take repeated trips and not just individuals. I don't even know if there is such a statistic. Like a ticket count, I guess? That would be the best way to do it? Like, what is the actual sold ticket count? Transports 1.4 million passengers annually since 2024. And it's up 18,000 passengers on peak summer days. Ridership has risen by 250,000 passengers over the past 5 years. And as the city keeps growing and as the more people that we get in here, as the population grows, more and more people are going to use the ferries. Right? It's like this isn't just like a ferry that you take across a bridge. This is a major service that's used. If anyone that's ever taken the fucking ferry knows exactly just how packed those goddamn fucking things can be. And it's a great ride. Don't get me wrong. I love the ferries. I'm not even complaining. It's a great time. But that is nuts. That is nuts. That's such a vital public service. A huge chunk of its cost was not even considered. Right? So it's stuff like that, right? It's stuff like that that would have been nice to know back in 2019 when they were taking a vote on this. So I could pressure my politicians to ask the right questions or attend the local meetings and voice my concerns and ask them, hey, it's nice and all you guys want to do this, but how are you going to pay for the charging? How are you going to cover this? How are you going to cover that? Right? Getting some level of public input on this would have been great. And I wish I had heard about it sooner, because now we're going to be footing the bill. And they have to come up with some kind of new tax to pay for it, right? Or expand an older tax or what have you. But the point is, they hit these costs to make the political policy more alluring, or to play down the actual cost, hoping that people wouldn't notice, and they didn't. And it's thanks to viral clips like this that we can see this stuff. This is on April the 3rd. They've already spent $92 million on the ferries. How much more do they have to spend on it? I mean, this is nothing short of ludicrous. In a city like Toronto, you think we would know how to do that properly. So in any case, I think I'm gonna end the stream off here because I'm reaching the 2-hour mark. And there's an event that I got to go to tomorrow morning. But to cap it off, my aim is to build a platform that not only adds or improves the leverage of citizens, but allows them to be more engaged in their community in a meaningful way that goes beyond just voting, and actually has them participate in the shaping of their environment. Because I think we've forgotten all that. I think that we, as a society, not just in Canada, but in North America as a whole, have in large swaths kind of forgotten that. I'm not saying that people don't get politically involved or that there's no existence of that. I've seen plenty of videos of school board meetings where it's quite the opposite, when a contentious issue happens, people actually get together and they do affect change. I have seen that, so I'm not saying it doesn't exist. I'm just saying that we need more of that. We need more of that, and we need some kind of platform that can maximize for it and empower people to actually affect and improve their immediate environment. So that's what I'm going to be working on. That's the current priority of the Whitepill project. I'm going to have more builder streams like this in the future, where I discuss more of the ideas. If anyone has any input, by all means, send it my way. I would love to workshop this and to see where it can take me. No, because I don't. This project isn't meant about me. What I mean that is what this project can accomplish. Because I want to be able to engage in my environment in a meaningful way and not just simply vote every 6 years and be mad and frustrated about it and just stream the election being like, oh my god, these fucking corrupt idiots. Like, that's nice and all to do once in a while, but because it is necessary. We do need to point out these people and laugh at them because that's the least they deserve. And to ridicule them when they fuck up. But at the end of the day, there has to be something beyond that. There has to be something beyond just shitposting on the internet or attending protests for conflicts and foreign wars or causes that don't really make much sense when they're put under even the slightest of scrutiny. We need something different. So that's my aim with this. And I appreciate to everyone having tuned in. Thank you for listening to this. Like always, you can find everything related to the Whitepill project at bio.link/whitepill. We got a Discord server. Please join. Where we have all sorts of fun there. Instagram, YouTube, Facebook. Oh, not Facebook, but X and all that. Still banned on Twitter, but we're working on it. We're going to work on it. Anyways, thank you guys for tuning in. I appreciate every one of you. I hope you had a wonderful Whitepill Wednesday, and I will see you next week.